Hello and welcome to another DC Corner. This is Ed Garrett for TM Stash welcoming you in. We've got a lot to talk about this week, so let's get right to it. DC's Futures End, and we're going to do a little bit of spoiling here, takes you to the Blood Moon as we finally see what that's about. We've been seeing the teaser for some time that as Futures End, the Blood Moon will rise. Well, as it turns out, the Blood Moon is a planet-sized ship belonging to a multiversal-sized Brainiac. We've already found out at the end of Superman Doomed that the Brainiac of the New 52, as tough as he was actually deemed a failure and was absorbed back in by a bigger collector that turns out to be a gigantic, rather grotesque-looking Brainiac who's been collecting not just planets, but maybe even entire universes from the multiverse. This may turn out to be the big bad for the upcoming April project. Everyone's wondering what's going to happen on the 30th anniversary of the Crisis on Infinite Earths. May come right out of this. Besides that, in Futures End, we're seeing the world react to Shazam's pretense as Superman. Ronnie Raymond comes back to town, but let's be real, the big deal is finding out about the Blood Moon. So we'll see what comes out of that in the next issue. Over in Action 35, also following the events of Superman Doomed number 2, as you know, Superman and Brainiac disappeared into a black hole. Brainiac was collected by this larger Brainiac. Superman is at the other side of the black hole, so far away from Earth that it takes him literally 60 days at full speed to make it back home, only to decide that maybe the world doesn't really need a Superman anymore. Certainly Clark Kent has a lot to say on that subject, sparking an interesting conversation with Lois Lane, who still believes in Superman. But there may be someone else who agrees with Clark, someone named Lana. Although Lana's own opinion may change after the cliffhanger at the end of this issue, this looks pretty good. Over in Batman Eternal number 26, the Bat family is back together, brought back together by their worries about Alfred. Alfred, however, has been taken out of the hospital and taken to someplace somewhat inhospitable with some folks we won't name here, but he's obviously in a real tight spot. While that's going on, Batman is not aware of that, but is telling the rest of the Bat family the New 52 origin of Hush, who is obviously the big bad for all of this in Batman Eternal and has really proven to be a very formidable opponent. The other main storyline for this issue was Spoiler, who was having her surprise on her dad interrupted by a very unpleasant surprise for her. Now, I really like what they're doing with Stephanie Brown in the New 52. There's a lot of folks, me included, who really liked her run as Batgirl pre-New 52, but what they've done in setting up her backstory here and the intensity they're giving her character, the amount of page count that they're giving her in Batman Eternal is really giving a chance to spotlight her, and I really like what's happening with her. Now, if you want to go a little bit different on a Bat book, check out Gotham Academy number 1, which came out this past Wednesday. It's more of a slice of life book. It's meant to be more for a teen audience. It's a very accessible book, but it's set in a school that supposedly once was attended by a young Bruce Wayne. He appears in a cameo in the issue. There are certainly a lot of other nods to Bat history in here, including a professor named Milo. But it's really more about these new characters. It's well written. It's not the same as the other Bat books. It certainly does not have the tone, the darkness, or the grimness of some of the other Bat books. But it's a very good story, and I think you'll like it. The only book that I had a little bit of trouble with, and I hate to say this because it's a well-written, well-drawn book, but it's Grayson. Grayson's one of the better sellers for DC, which incidentally, DC won the battle for September in unit shares and dollar sales, mainly because of the Futures End tie-ins. And Grayson's one of their better books, except this is a great spy book. It's a wonderful spy story. It's well written, well drawn, but it stars Dick Grayson, who I really keep wanting to see in a Nightwing or Robin outfit, really these days Nightwing. So I'm having trouble dealing with that. Other than that, it's a great book. Let's go ahead and look ahead to October 8th. Let me back up a second. Let's look at October 7th first, because that's the debut of Flash on the CW network in the United States, on other channels elsewhere. We've seen a sneak peek at the pilot episode. It looks wonderful. If you're a Flash fan at all, grab a seat, get some popcorn, watch this show. You'll be very glad you did. The next day, of course, is the season debut of Arrow, but also it's New Comic Book Day. And you'll see the new Batgirl team with Batgirl number 35 and an artist who is very aptly named Babs Tarr. And I think it's wonderful to have someone named Babs drawing Barbara Gordon. It's more of an indie style of artwork. Looks great. I'm anxious to see what will happen here. The new design for the costume certainly has cosplayers already going wild, so we'll see how this plays out. You'll also see Batman Eternal and Futures End moving forward. Batman 35 will be out. Earth 2 is the start of the World's End storyline, and this World's End has already been played out a little bit in Futures End, and if it plays out like that says it will, and keep in mind Futures End is a possible future, but if that plays out, then this start of World's End is going to be the demise of Earth 2 as we know it, maybe of even the entire universe of Earth 2. Playing out over in World's Finest, number 27, they go back in time to before Earth 2 number 1 to talk about some sort of strange deal between the Jor-El of that universe and that universe's Zod. Green Lantern Corps continues the Godhead storyline. This is where the new gods have come after all the ring bearers. They got one of each color of the emotional spectrum and still weren't able to crack the life equation. They're trying to get that to combat Darkseid's search for the anti-life equation. So now they've decided what they really need is Kyle Rayner, the White Lantern. They're aware he's alive. No one else seems to know that. So this is going to be a really interesting storyline here. Superman Wonder Woman number 12 comes out. This is the last one with Charles Soule. He's winding down his work with DC. I think he's still going to carry on with Swamp Thing for a little while longer before he goes exclusive with Marvel. Wish him all the best there, but we're going to really miss him on this title. He took this skeptic who was, I'm an old Lois and Clark guy, and made me really cheer for Superman and Wonder Woman. So I'm anxious to see how this one turns out on Wednesday. Also, the debut of Clarion number 1. This is Clarion the Witch Boy, a very great character from pre-New 52, getting his own independent title within DC's universe in the New 52 starting on Wednesday. That's it for the DC news for the week. Be sure to catch our Comics Week in Review podcast on tmstash.com and also over on our YouTube channel. And as always, keep checking out TM Stash for all your news, reviews, and commentary. This is Ed Garrett saying we'll catch you next week.